Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome back to The Crawl, the show where we break down the future of search, brand authority, and everything else AI is rewriting about digital marketing. I'm Tristan Harris, your host, and today we're going to be chatting with the founder of needanattorney.net, Anthony May, on how to build a digital footprint and up your business with AI. Anthony May is an AI systems strategist and legal technology founder focused on building decision-grade platforms in high-trust, high-stakes environments. He is the founder of needanattorney.net, an AI-driven legal matching platform designed to reduce friction for consumers while improving intake quality and operational efficiencies for law firms. So, with more than 20 years' experience across digital marketing, cybersecurity, and regulated industries, Anthony specializes in how AI, search, and automation intersect with trust, user behavior, and real world decision making. His work centers on moving beyond content generation towards AI systems that intelligently route people, reduce anxiety, and support better outcomes at scale. Anthony brings an operator's perspective on deploying AI responsibly in production environments, how platforms earn long-term credibility with both users and algorithms, and why trust architecture, not raw traffic or automation volume, is the defining challenge of modern AI-powered platforms. So first of all, Anthony, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for letting me be a guest. I appreciate it. I know that's a big amount of words that you said in regards to what I do at Need an Attorney, but I do really appreciate it. It's a very warm welcome, and I'm glad to be a part of this.
Great. Yeah, I always start out, the first question I always ask is, how does it feel to have kind of your career and your accomplishments kind of listed off like that?
It's alienistic to say the least. When I got into search or the internet and everything in regards to digital marketing, it was more or less by accident. When I got into it, I saw like, hey, this is great. Let's go ahead and let's just see where this road goes. But now when I go ahead and I reflect, I'm like, oh my Lord, I can't believe I did that. Oh, I can't believe we brought that into the S&P 500. I can't believe, they opened up 18 locations from that. And it's in the time when you're in it, you don't really see it. But when you go ahead and you look back, you go, whoa, that was something. And not only that is that I can say that I've had a lot of experience and I've had a lot of depth and I've been able to go and do a lot of things, but I've also had some great teams with me also doing it at the same time.
That's fantastic. And yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like most of us, my background is very heavily in search. And I feel like most people that fall into that realm fall into it by accident, right? Like none of us
Hmm.
went to school for that. I remember in college, I don't think SEO is even taught in any of the marketing courses. I think I remember one of my professors and Root mentioned it once, and it was like, "Oh, this is a thing that is a thing. Maybe you
Uh-huh.
should think about doing it with all your other marketing stuff." So, yeah, most everybody I know in the industry fell into it by accident. There's no kid that's like, "I want to be a cop. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be an SEO." Like it just doesn't exist. So
That would be the worst Halloween costume. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that right now.
it would just be me in a sweater with a laptop. It'd be great.
Yep.
So yeah, that was definitely, I think, your point of kind of falling into the industry. It happens to all of us. I've, been in the industry my whole career, and I know a lot of people who have worked their way up, such as, one of our first guests on this season was the global head of search at ManyChat, and I've
Uh,
known him for a number of years. And same thing, he didn't go to school for marketing. He fell into it. So it's definitely a kind of an interesting industry that takes some passion. And your point on how fresh it keeps you with the algorithm updates and with now the massive change towards AI search, that's that's what keeps it interesting to me. I think if it was something that didn't change constantly, I'd be bored and I wouldn't be interested in staying in that.
well, the great thing about what we do is nobody at Google, no one at AI is going to go ahead and tell you, hey, this is how you're going to do things. So the best part about this is that we're constantly trying to find the answer with a good portion of that calculation not even existent. And so earlier in my career, I just thought to myself, I'm in this alone and I'm by myself. And that's only how I'm going to go ahead and get forward. But as I move forward and I've moved through these different verticals or these different types of marketing issues, I found out that the more I reached out and the more I was collected with others, the more successful I was. And I'm not going to tell you that I had 100% success. There's many times where things blew up, but with that, it wasn't a matter of it blew up. It's a matter of what can I learn from it? How can I get up from it? And how can I actually use this in my weaponry to go ahead and really bring the next thing I'm doing forward to the next spot? And AI is no different than it is with search. Um, we have a lot more factors, but as we talked about, it's more of a collective now than it is just, hey, let's go ahead and get on the front page of Google. And if we go ahead and have that, and also the mindset of we're just trying to help the customer at all times to have an answer to their query, that's the part that is never going to go ahead and really change. That is always going to be consistent. And as we always have that at the forefront, we're going to have a lot of success.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Um, there's it's a natural evolution is how I view it. It's the industry, just evolving with technology, and it's something that is exciting. It's not something that a lot of people, are freaking out, especially early this year when we saw, traffic, that big hit to traffic. And what a
Mhm.
lot of people didn't realize is for specifically for clients that you work with in the law side and I work with in a lot of different industries, their bottom line isn't defined by traffic. It's defined by leads coming in, clients coming in, and those don't change based on AI search. Now,
Mhm.
if you're more present in AI search, you're, more likely that people will search for your brand and go to your site and all of that. But the traffic that people were losing early this year was a lot of informational, educational traffic, which had a big impact on websites that were solely optimized by ads, right?
Yep.
So that were monetized by ads. So those websites that were serving a million different recipes, and their whole goal was to just put as many ads in front of you as they possibly could. Well, yeah, that business took a big hit. But the businesses that the mom and pops of this country and the small, medium, large law firms, those are people that they still their clients still need to find their brand, which now with AI search is even easier, and then still go to their website, book a meeting, go in for a consultation, things along those lines. So it's a really interesting time to be part of the industry, and I know that for those SEOs and AEOs that work on the side of those informational and educational sites, it's a pretty harrowing experience right now. But for us, I'm sure you've seen it too. It's creating an opportunity to almost shortcut having to spend time to rank on the front page and having to kind of push that. Now, if you have a blended model of SEO and AEO, you can get your brand up front in front of clients much quicker than you could with traditional SEO, which is a really interesting time to be in the industry.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. The industry we talked about before, change. Nobody likes change. Let's be honest. Everybody hates it. But at the same time, change is what keeps us relevant. Change is just what's going to happen. And we either embrace it or not. And I've spoken at many different areas in regards to this. But if you don't get on the bandwagon, it's going to be that much harder to climb. And when we talk about, and in you're like me, you've been in this for a few years. We go ahead and talk about the early 2000s in regards to search. That was just the Wild Wild West. Oh, don't worry, I'll get that ranked in 2 days, and it would. I mean, those things it learned, it moved. Google the algorithm, then Google said, "Hey, we're not going to let you do this," and it became more concrete. It didn't mean we go ahead and just say, "Hey, it's dead. We're not doing this anymore." We just evolved with the times. This is just another evolve, if you will, but it's a much bigger evolve. And with that, it is a much bigger evolve in regards to, hey, we're not really. Yes, links are still important. Yes, this is still important, but also how people talk about you, how Reddit reviews look, how your reviews on Google or this or that or whatever. We're going to do a collective, and so it's not just going to be based on this part of this part and this part. Let's say Google has done a great job in the past doing that, but all these pieces together saying, "Hey, this is what we think." And we're going to go ahead and use an intelligence in it to go ahead and give you a little bit of weight on one way or the other, or maybe even right down the middle to go ahead and try to help you fix that problem, that query that you have, as we talked about before. And that's really all we want to do is basically find the solution to a problem as fast as possible and as accurate as possible. Google's embraced this. ChatGPT's embraced this. We have a gazillion other AIs that actually have embraced this. And that is what is changing. And if you don't jump on board, and like these little law firms, these are the ones that need to embrace it now, because it gives them the chance to go ahead and not be traditionally on the fourth page. Now they can go ahead and get in front of the client they want and want to go ahead and have coming to their firm and what they want to fill with their billable hours.
Exactly. And that's an area of opportunity that we're seeing across other industries as well. So an example that one of our guests used earlier this I guess last year at this point, happy 2026, everybody. One of our guests used last year was, it's impossible for an e-com store selling t-shirts to compete on search with Gap, with Old Navy, with all of the big brands, right? But if they niche down on their specific topics, like the specific kind of you know, clothing they're selling, they can then compete on AI search, and they're no longer relegated to page 4 because they don't have the budget to compete with the big firms. They're able to then appear in front of customers, like first thing on the page, right? So
Yep.
that's a big area of opportunity right now. It's almost like, you talk about search in the early 2000s, where it was almost like the Wild West, land grab kind of deal. It's exactly, it's almost the same thing now, where the brands that are moving quick have an opportunity to appear in this. And yeah, people are resistant to change. It's human nature. But if you can break that and get past that and get to the point where, okay, let's take a dive in this. It's not going to be a massive investment of time or labor. It's going to be, let's figure out what we can do to show up there. And that ties back to your earlier point. I love testing new things, and half of the things we've tested don't work. More than half, by far. Like 80% of the things I've tested over my career have had okay results, or didn't, weren't statistically significant in growth. But finding those things that do work, which currently for us are things that increase brand awareness across industries, such as things like digital PR, things along those lines, where you can get your name mentioned in top media. You mentioned it, reviews. Reviews are incredibly important, especially for local businesses. Those things are a lot easier to do than people would think. And being able to do that and appear in AI search is a way for a lot of these smaller firms to become irrelevant and to kind of one up some of those giant brands that are spending 100,000 a month on search. So to start off, I'd love to dive into your background, and know a little bit more about yourself and a little bit more about your background with AI.
Okay. Um, Started doing this. I started my first business when I was about 20. And it was a photography industry. And I got into it, like we talked about, by accident. And I'm like, well, there's something here, and I can see where this is going. Let's go ahead and get on it. And from that point, started to build it, and started to use digital marketing more and more. We had a lot of traditional marketing, but we had a lot of digital. We had when I sold the business about 10 years ago, had monopolies throughout all of Phoenix, all of Arizona. It was one of the 10th largest within the nation. Got to do some great things with it, and actually got to meet some great people and do some great things. I got recruited into law after that. And that vertical, I thought to myself, if I want to be tested, I need to go ahead and go to the hard verticals. And that's where I want to be. Um, and in that, I found out that there was a disconnect. And it was always hard to go ahead and get that connect to go ahead and work right. Attorneys could never get the right client. But they had 80 hours they got to fill. So, hey, we got to go ahead. We got to have Joe family law. I got a divorce for him, even though I don't do that. I do criminal law, or vice versa, or maybe it's something like that. And then you had clients that go ahead and say, I need an attorney, but I don't know where to turn. I got a court case in 2 months and I'm scared half to death. Where do I go? And so they would call around to their family attorney. They would call around to the IP attorney in Texas or whatever, trying to find a way. There was always a disconnect, but trying, and even consulting, I would always have almost not a mismatch, but an inability to go ahead and get 100% correction every single time. And I would love that, but that's not going to ever happen 100%. But it was a big, big disconnect. And I started going, and I knew this was going to be an issue. And I started going through different areas of law, and I consulted for many companies, and they all had the same thing. And the clients, and I heard the phone calls, same thing. Got into cybersecurity. worked for Palo Alto Networks, and that's where AI took a big piece. When the AI boom, as it will, really started being place, they took a hands-on approach and said, we're going after this. And not only that, is that we have no idea what we're doing, but we want to be a part of this. And some of the things that they were doing were not radical, but amazing. And they also had the ability to go ahead and not only just make the company succeed, but also have it where it would have falters, but that was part of the learning process. And so from that point, after consulting was done with Palo Alto Networks, I really wanted to go ahead and use a lot of that information, a lot of the AI before I learned it, in that progress also, and really trying to go ahead and connect these two pieces. And quite honestly, this could not have been done without the help of AI. And that is the one piece that I can't really give enough. Like we talk about, change is scary, but also at the same time, it has given me the ability to go ahead and not only create this AI connection, but also be able to go ahead and put in forecasts, be able to go ahead and look at what's compression rates on these pieces, what's happening with Google. How do I know what this is going to happen? What is my AI search going to be looking like? What does it look like? And it look like in 12 months? What is the trajectory for income? And also, what band am I on right now? And every morning, I can tell you 7 days a week, I'm on it. I'm probably on AI at least 5 hours a day, if not more. And that's every day. But it also, as I learn, I see it learning too. And at the same time, it is a way different model that I have, a unified model that I actually carry from chats to chats that I had a year ago, let alone 2 months ago. And that is actually the amazing part of it.
Yeah, and that is something you mentioned is really interesting there. You talk about the need in the legal industry for clients to match correctly with attorneys, right? And knock on wood, I've never had to hire an attorney, right? And I hope I can say that when I'm 90, you know. Um, but I am familiar with Reddit, and there's a whole subreddit there. I think it's Ask a Lawyer or something
Mm-hmm.
along those lines, where it's people coming in and they're like, they outline some specific thing that's happened and they ask, do I need an attorney? And that kind of just complete, you know, people don't even know when they need a lawyer half the time. And then when they do figure it out, I don't know the difference between, you know, a contract lawyer, somebody that does litigation, somebody that does criminal or personal injury, and how to source that. I assume that kind of challenge in the market for the consumer is the main pain point that you were looking to address when you built out needanattorney.net. And then the opposite side of getting it to the right attorney. So they're not, you know, taking like, hey, I primarily do contract law, but I got to fill my 80 hours and this person is going through a divorce and needs an attorney. So I guess I'll figure it out, you know, or do something outside of my discipline that I wouldn't normally touch on. So can you get a little more into how the AI itself kind of helps match that? Is it something where, and forgive me, I didn't go through the process of, you know, on the side, I don't want to give you a fake lead, but can you kind of walk me through how that process works?
No problem. So somebody says, hey, I've got, I don't know, a dog bite. Okay. And I have no idea where I'm going. Do I need an entertainment attorney? Do I need an IP attorney? I have no idea. So we've put it into the system, and the pages themselves, they land on, they're educational, but they're also intakes also. And they're dedicated actually to the area that actually they live in. So they fill out a questionnaire, and those pieces right there are AI aspects. It's actually fed through an AI. Then we have attorneys that say, "Hey, I really like. I live in Memphis, Tennessee, and I really like dog bite. I really like clients that have dog bites. Nobody likes that. Well, let's just say I really want the clients that are actually having dog bites and maybe slip and falls, or maybe I like IP factors, it's intellectual properties like patent issues, and I want that client to come to me. So they each get more or less kind of a number system itself, and it's actually fed through the AI. The AI goes ahead and says, okay, guess what? We're looking at this attorney, good bar license record, very successful in this area. He really wants this type of attorney, this type of attorney. So we're really kind of selective, actually, the attorneys that come on board. When they hit the submit button, goes through the AI and actually calls the attorney itself. And so like we talked about before, there's a couple different factors here. One is that not only do we want to get the client to the right attorney and vice versa, you also want to make sure they feel comfortable,
Mhm.
because this is always, whenever you're dealing with court stuff, it is scary. Even attorneys find it scary when they have to go for their court stuff.
Yeah.
So making sure we have that direct connection saying, hey, here's this. You got the case that I love and I'm very successful in this area of law. I want to go ahead and I want to sign you on board. That way it removes the friction, as you talked about before, between the client and the attorney trying to find the right person. And also adding that instant match and an instant call and actually getting them signed up is actually what the foundation and actually what was the genesis of actually creating Need an Attorney. Um, Relief on one side and
Mhm.
success on the other side, which together they have success together.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's rare that you can find a way to address a pain point on both sides of the ball, right? On the client side as well as, the the company side. And a lot of that is in my industry, in my history, I should say, of work, I've always worked for individual brands and companies. So it's always like we're trying to help those people, but we're also, we need the business. So when it comes to, hey, I'm kind of this person in the middle, I'm trying to help out the lawyers that are struggling to find the right kind of client, as well as the clients who are struggling to find the right kind of lawyer. That's a really interesting space. And I think it's really cool that you built something out utilizing AI to help match that. So you mentioned, checking that they have a valid bar license as part of it, right? Um, so what other things do you check for credibility, um, for your model? Is it things like years of experience, admission to the bar? It seems like obviously geo is very important in legal because you're certified on the state level. Uh, but is it things like geo that they operate in, proximity to the client, I guess, would be a big one. Are there other things your model takes into account?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of factors. And
Mm,
with me saying this, it's going to change tomorrow
yeah.
because it's ever evolving. That's the problem, is it's ever evolving.
Mhm,
Geolocation is important, but we also talk about different verticals of law. We
mhm.
go ahead and we talk about personal injury. That may be very important that they have somebody close, because not only do we want the ability to go ahead and connect them to a close person and actually trying actually where their law license is at, but making sure that they can go ahead and go visit, I don't know, Joe at, so and so attorney.com or whatever it may be. Um, so there's going to be that. There's also, like I said, there's always a guy in AI in our team that's actually working on it, working up the program itself. And right now, some of the things, bar licenses, but also what are public records and scraping those, and what's their success record in those pieces. So talk about dog bites. Maybe, and like I said, it's always evolving, but their dog bites, are they more successful in those than they are their child custody cases?
That's really interesting. So you're taking success rate into account as well.
It's like I said, it's always moving, and this is
Yeah.
actually one of the latest pieces that we're actually trying to go ahead and introduce in the system.
Mm. Oh,
And
that's
there's
cool.
some successes, and there's not, but it's actually part of it. But yes, that success is going to be tied to a big piece, because you got to always remember what the foundation of this is. Is I want to bring success not only for the attorney but for the client. And if I can go ahead and just say, hey, you got a success record, this, and this, because we have, we may have 5, 6 attorneys in a certain area, but making sure that not only do they want this piece on the attorney side, but the client can go ahead and say, oh, guess what? He's got the highest success record in these types of pieces. That's what I want. But the issue comes up to what's public and what's not. And what can we scrape? What can we not scrape? And those are all factors that actually go into it also. And also, I don't know if you know this, but also we actually use we're actually able to, once they do connect and they do like them, actually import information into their CRMs for them already.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I'm not sure. I've worked with a few law firms in the past, but years ago. I'm not sure if it's the same as a lot of the industries that I've specialized in. But most people uh, that are very focused on a discipline like law or things like that, um, tech seems to be their own tech stack seems to be like a third or fifth kind of priority, right? So being able to import directly to CRM and kind of make it just the easiest possible for them is super important in a lot of areas that we work with. I assume it's the same with you guys.
You know, I can tell you right now, I've worked with some attorneys that have been very, very big names, and I go into them and they have a computer and it has dust on it, and we got a pile of papers this big. And that's just the way it is. But that's part of the embracing. And that I have to say, a lot of the attorneys I do work are not necessarily young. They are sometimes old, but those are the usually guys that are most successful.
Yeah.
But making that ease factor so they can actually get into it easy. And not only that, is a lot of the paralegals or people they have working for them, they are not going to be paper based. They are
Mhm.
going to be into the paper system itself. So actually making sure that the attorney knows that, hey, I've got the right client and Anthony's feeding me the right clients, but also the paralegals themselves saying, hey, thank the Lord, I don't have to go ahead and have to print out emails and this and that or whatever. To actually just put the information in for me is a part of actually the success we're looking, not looking just for success attorney client, but for the whole law firm also at the same time.
Yeah, and increasing efficiency has a benefit both
Mm.
in a business where billable hours are tracked, has a
Yep.
benefit both for the client that's coming in as well as the lawyer that's representing them. So that's really interesting. I didn't think uh I when I took a look at this, I didn't think beyond the, me being a marketing guy, how to get people in and how to get them to the client. So the fact that you guys are able to also iron out some areas of some of the pain points on actually, getting the information in, having all of that going. That's really interesting. Um, I'd like to pivot to talking about AI search itself. So, specifically for legal is a heavily regulated industry, and this would be the same with things like pharma. Um, what risks do you think law firms face if AI systems such as ChatGPT are misrepresenting or oversimplifying their expertise?
Oh, good Lord. That's a good one. Um, so really, if we go ahead and look at what, there is always going to be that problem. We're going to have it not only in law, we're going to have it in medical, we're going to have it in a lot of different areas. Um, and that's why we talk about embracing these issues and fixing these issues. So if AI is misrepresenting, we need to have somebody that's actually going and actually helping those pieces for AI to go ahead and figure it out correctly. Where is it actually driving that information from? Is it our properties? Because if it is our properties, that is going to be a major issue in itself. If it's not our property, not as big as an issue, but if it is, we need to go ahead and see if we can go ahead and correct these matters in regards to AI itself. But as you know, AI can be very quick at things, but also depending on what it can also be very slow at things too, also
Mhm.
at the same time, which is an odd combination itself. So in regards to attorneys and laws, making sure that actually they button down what they have. And we talk about other laws. Not only those laws, we have other laws like alt tag laws that they actually attorneys get hit with all the time in regards to ADA compliance issues, HIPAA
Mm.
violations. All those other factors are just another part of what they do and how they do it, but it's also a risk to the business. But making sure that actually we go through and try to correct those pieces, a lot of times it's the best we can do, but a lot of times where it's actually on the site, it's what we necessarily have to do, and we have to do it for the company and also for the law firm itself.
That's interesting because if they are pulling that data from site and sorry, excuse me, and that data is incorrect, it it almost is an issue internally that could open up kind of a big can of worms. So, for example, a lot of companies out there, they utilize third party content writers, right? Like the lawyer isn't sitting down to write a blog post most of the time. I'm sure it happens occasionally. But in that situation, that you're outsourcing that, you could be having people one, two, three steps removed from the actual legal world writing the content for the site that is then being consumed by these models to represent the brand. So that's probably an area of opportunity for kind of going in and cleaning up a lot of that old content if and when it is misrepresenting what they do. And a lot of that is traditional SEO content, right? Like
Hmm.
you might be a personal injury attorney, but that SEO is going to try to rank you for everything possible under the sun because that keyword has search volume. And then that might lend to your brand being, you might just do personal injury, or that might be what you want to focus on, but then you're showing up for everything, IP, criminal, whatever it could be. So that's actually a really interesting point.
Yep. But Tristan, as you talk about that, there's another part to this. We talked
Mhm.
about at the very beginning. What's our job as SEO, is AIO, what that is, bringing value to the customer. And if we're outsourcing this to third person removed, and I understand we are busy, we've all got our stuff, but ultimately our our digital footprint is probably one of the most important pieces of actually our businesses as a whole.
Absolutely.
And so if they are not taking the steps to go ahead and do that and be considerate of what those things are, and a lot of times also shows what is going to happen in regards to their not only their personal life but their business life also as a total. Are they being responsible? And is that somebody that we want to go ahead and promote on the site itself too at the same time? Because all those factors is going to also going to go ahead and relate to one thing: success at the end of the day.
And that's something I've noticed firsthand. If you have, so for example, here we use human writers almost
Hmm.
entirely, right? And we, on my specific team that does the marketing for our own brands, we, flirt with using AI, but we heavily, heavily edit it, right? Um, and we tend to not outsource a lot of things simply because, in the length of my career, quality is always better than quantity, especially when it comes to
Hmm.
content. And that's something, like we have, I'll give a shout out to somebody on my team. Rachel Hernandez is absolutely fantastic when it comes to the content side. She's our senior director of content here. And she runs a really tight ship when it comes to that side of it to make sure that one, that we're not misrepresenting what we do, but two, with the advent of AI search, it's so important to be able to create content uh, that matches what people are prompting and will help people find what we're doing, help them feel comfortable with what we do, and feel like, kind of build that level of trust. And if you're outsourcing that, which unfortunately a lot of agencies out there, a lot of people out there do, um, then you run into the issue of, okay, you're not necessarily getting somebody that's an expert on the topic. You're getting somebody that is trying to knock out 1,000 words as quickly as possible. So
Yep.
yeah. Um,
But
sorry.
there's a value to that too, though.
Mhm,
You talked about, SEO and, AI. AI is
mhm,
smart enough to go ahead and see these things. Google's smart enough to go ahead and see these things. And if we're going ahead and just regurgitating and actually putting something out that
mhm,
more or less is we got a gazillion pages of, I'd rather have one good page that actually drives the value of the right customer to the
mhm.
site than have 1,000 pages of just waste. And look at efficiency in a money standpoint. It's like, okay, about 1,000 pages, you got 1,000 pages. What is this doing? Nothing. I'm going to tell you one of the most valuable employees of a law firm of many different places is the content creation team, because not
Absolutely.
only does it give you the education that people really want, they
Mhm,
want to go ahead and not only know the answer, but the reason behind it, but in a way that actually hits their persona, hits their feelings, knows that, hey, by the way, you understand me, and this is not a computer generated piece. And I understand you, and that's why I want to do business with you, or I want to go ahead and be on your site or do these things with you. And people a lot of times forget how important that is to the overall trajectory of any website, be e-commerce or need an attorney or or Amazon. All those pieces are so important. They want to know that, hey, I can connect with this piece. I know this piece. I know what they're doing, and I want to make sure I want to help them. But that's back to what we talked about. Google wanting to go ahead and make sure we give the right answer to the right person.
that actually is really interesting. That ties into a point that our previous guest Tiago Ferreira made, in that it's becoming more and more important to have that kind of human communication, even if it's being summarized and people are being funneled through AI to get to it. Having that kind of human to human connection is so important because, as you know, I'm sure that we've all seen the slew of AI slop out there, right? People are becoming somewhat uh, somewhat immune to it, right? And people are looking for that human connection. They're looking for somebody that they can trust. They don't necessarily want to, come across another AI generated recipe, right? They want to know
Mhm.
what Martha Stewart thinks. They want to know how Martha Stewart cooks. So they want to be able to have that kind of level of trust that what they're getting is legit. And that isn't something that, AI summarized content does. You need that human connection.
It's funny you actually said that. I actually consulted for a cybersecurity company, a different one, and I remember I had the CEO. He would actually, it was very very funny. But what he would do is that he would get gazillion emails. He would scan through them, and he started doing something where he would start to look for errors, misspelling errors, be this error, this error. And he goes, "Oh, that's a live person. That's worth reading because I got a gazillion other emails, and I know they're all AI generated. But that right there, he used maybe it was missing a period or no dashes or whatever it may be. But he would go ahead, he would be looking for those pieces, and he honed in on that piece, and he go, "Hey, it's spend a little more time on it." Go, this is actually a human wrote this piece. And that was actually the difference in him a lot of times doing business with actually different companies was that one factor that, hey, I know somebody actually touched this.
So that's actually really interesting you say that. Back in the, mid 2010s, uh, when, very templated emails that were just using merge
Hmm.
fields to sound personalized came out. There was a study that went out, and it's something, a company I'm familiar with adopted after the fact, that found that if you had misspellings and if you had areas that made it look like this isn't highly polished, this could actually be coming from a dude that, just hit two periods instead of one or something along those lines, it actually increased your response rate, and not by a small amount, by like an astronomical amount. So that's actually really interesting because we're kind of coming back full circle to that, where it's like now people are like M dashes, no, anything using an M dash, no, not going to read it, So it's coming back to that, like maybe just a few purposeful, grammatical errors or the way to kind of push that trust, and make it clear that, we're not we're not a robot talking to you. Um, it's really
Don't worry,
interesting.
my college teacher's probably turning over. English teacher's turning over in their grave right now. You're trying to do this.
It's it kind of falls back into the, when they zig, I zag mentality.
Mhm.
If
Yep.
everybody's trying to make everything super polished, maybe we do the opposite.
No, you're 100% right. We also, the other factor is that people want to talk to people and they don't want to talk to somebody they feel like they're talking down to, and vice versa. They don't want to feel like they're talked up to also.
Mhm.
They want something that's on the same page, and having two periods or you should have had a capital, or maybe and shouldn't start a sentence, or whatever it may be. Those pieces right there make a big difference in regards to actually people interacting with you, and actually a lot of trust factors do go along with it.
What it boils down to is it's relatable, right?
Hmm.
It's they can see themselves making that mistake. They have sent that email before, so it's like, hey, I this is obviously a person. This is obviously, somebody I can relate to. Um, Earlier you mentioned digital footprint, right? And kind of the idea of needing to have a kind of very very focused digital footprint, and having good control over that. Could you tell me why that matters more now in the AI age than it did even 2 years ago?
Well, we kind of talked about this a little bit before, but talking about the digital footprint, it used to be the website. That's the most important commodity that we have. 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. It's working, and that's all we need. But now and Google said, "Yep, this is what's important. We need to be doing this." And yeah, we're going to put some Facebook stuff up here, or maybe Instagram, or maybe TikTok. But most of the time, we're going to go ahead and go with this. But with the change in regards to AI coming on board and it now being the collective, and I mean by that is that, hey, I'm not pulling just from websites. I am pulling from social media sites. I'm pulling from this. I'm pulling on your reviews. As we talked about all those items right there, that's why it's so much more important. And blue links, those are always going to be important and they still are as important. But just as important also, they're just mentions. somebody talking about, hey, I worked with Anthony over at so and so, or Tristan was helping me out with this piece over at so and so. Those pieces, they don't seem like they're much, but they all add up. And all of that adding up, it's more or less, it's not one thing is going to go ahead and make a difference. It's one plus one plus one plus one, keep on going on. Those are the pieces that actually get you the AI change. Those are the pieces that actually get AI to go ahead and listen up. And we go ahead and we talk about, he talked about issues in regards to AI reporting wrong information for law firms. Same idea, making sure they go ahead and have the correct information. Those things that may move a little slow because one doesn't equal one over here. It's one plus one plus one plus one, just like we've seen for years in regards to when you had a location and you had a couple wrong addresses. Good Lord, watch out. It's not going to go ahead and show up maps correctly. That's why you need to go ahead and get those things fixed. And you go ahead and by doing that by either, um, uh, what is it? Yeah, I can't even think anymore. When you have a lot of pollution, you go ahead and dilution is actually the solution. That's the same idea. Making sure that if you have a couple and you can't control them, let's go ahead and let's flood the in regards to actually making it right in the right areas we possibly can to go ahead and help get that correction in AI. And so when you go ahead and bring it on back, why is it so important? Because AI is the change, AI is the future, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to see it go ahead and go full force. And if you don't get on board now, you're going to be paying a lot of catch up later on.
Yeah, that's a great point. You mentioned social specifically. Something a study I saw that came out recently um, showed that Reddit, LinkedIn, YouTube were primarily the top three
Mm-hmm.
domains that were cited across AI search tools. And specifically for Chat GPT search, Wikipedia is number one, which is like a very interesting thing because years ago in the SEO world, as you know, we used to kind of abuse Wikipedia a little bit to try to get links back to the site and all of that and get the brand mentions
Oh
all
yeah.
that. And it's kind of that idea of what's old is new again. If that's the
Mm-hmm.
number one, like they're being cited in something like 19% of chat GPT searches. So all those, I'm sure you get spam by it all the time, like we do. All those people that are like reaching out to us on LinkedIn or email saying like, oh, we can build Wikipedia pages for you. And like we've ignored them for 10 years because it hasn't worked for, 10, 15 years, right? Were they just ahead of their time or is it, just pure luck? So I think that's really interesting. But to the point, LinkedIn is very heavily overrepresented. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of brands, they don't do a lot on LinkedIn. I'm sure a lot of lawyers, are in a similar boat where how much time do you really devote to brand building on, a specific network like LinkedIn? For us, obviously that's become more and more important, especially at NextNet and some of our other brands. And shout out to the host, to the person that puts this podcast together, Christina. She runs our social, and she's incredible. Um, is that something you're seeing on the legal side as well? Is that LinkedIn has that become more and more valuable for AI citations?
I've always, I'm going to tell you, so we talk about, things coming full circle. I'm going to tell you, attorneys are usually a little bit on the slower side in regards to digital uh, transformations. And so they never really left LinkedIn for the most part, and they're still very much there. And so I have to say that I have never really throttled that piece down. Um, in regards to how I market on LinkedIn, that's changed quite a bit
Mhm.
because I do know that they got a gazillion different and instant messaging from this, and they have an AI aspect. Somebody else is doing it this way and doing automation. Um, but that part, I've never really changed that piece because also I know that's where my persona is at too. Also at the same time. And so, yes, has it changed? Yes. And I've seen a lot of other verticals where actually LinkedIn is actually a bigger piece, but also at the same time, um, I've never really actually given up on that piece because I actually do have somewhat some success on those aspects. Even if you look at my profile, I have to say 96% of it are all attorneys. And 90% of those actually are we're communicating on it on a weekly, if not a monthly basis.
That's awesome. Yeah. So that's an area where an industry moving slower actually came back around and works out for them, which is really, really really cool.
Yeah, it is a very odd particular piece, but also we talked a little bit of, and I'm going to jump back here, talked a little bit about Google in the early 2000s being the Wild West. And AI, we were in that in the last 2 years. We've been somewhat what you call the Wild West. But the change that we have from Google to AI is that at Google there was I don't know, there was George running the algorithm center just for the, and he goes, hey, I'm taking Saturday, Sunday off. I'm going to go and I'll work on that when I get back. It was humans. They're working on it. The AI, this Wild West that we have had for a year or so, it's changing very quickly and very dramatically. And actually, I am seeing it actually. We talk about Moore's Law, and it's changing. I've actually seen the reports on how actually Moore's Law has actually changed. The AI has changed it, but it is sloping up at an incredible change. And so that's why I talk about you got to get on board now, because if you don't get on board now, you're going to be left in the dust. And that's a big problem, because getting up that ladder is going to be much harder compared to the people that are already up there.
And that's a point I have been harping on incessantly to anybody that will listen, is if you could have started SEO at the same time as all of your competitors or even before them, where would you be today? And that
Yeah.
is what the AI kind of change on search represents. If you start it now ahead of your competitors, you're going to be light years ahead. You're not going to be paying to catch up for a decade. You're going to
Hmm.
be, able to kind of take pole position and run with it, which is, you know, an opportunity for every brand out there, whether it's, enterprise level or whether it's smaller mom and pops. If it's, if we're talking about, Paul's plumbing supply company, you might not have the capital or the wherewithal to compete at a high level with, the national plumbing supply companies, so to speak. But you can definitely do it now if you jump in and you make the right moves and you devote some time to it. So definitely a massive area of opportunity, and it's exciting for us, because on our end we have clients that run the gamut, and it gives us an opportunity to help clients at a much smaller level have outsized results, right? One thing I wanted to ask you, and I feel like this would be specifically pertinent to the legal industry, is where should human judgment override AI output every time?
The question you ask is very difficult to answer, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tell you why. Most of the time, most people have to deal with an attorney maybe once or twice in life. And just like at SEO, and some companies go ahead and say, "I'm going to hire this guy because he's $99 a month, and he does a he must be great." But then you go ahead and you get burned. The site blows up. You can't do this. AI is giving you sell chicken and you don't sell chicken. You're in the legal service, and I mean that's just the way it is. And so that part is hard. Um, and so using AI right now, as we talked about before, it is changing, but making sure to go ahead and do as we have done in the past. Let's go ahead and look it up. Let's see what it is in AI, but let's also look in other locations too. Let's go ahead and find out where their experts are at, and let's go ahead and see what they think about this piece too. So things like not Quora, things like Reddit, ask an attorney. That's a great starting point. That's a great starting point to go ahead and say, hey, what should I be looking for? Where I have an attorney, should they be answering my calls? Should I be doing this? Should I be worried about this? And that's the entry point. But the more you educate yourself, the more you go ahead and you know that AI is doing. And as I talked about before, I have a model in AI that I use that is completely different than it was a year ago. But also, I have educated it, but it's also educated itself, and collectively, we've also come to agreements and also changes itself. And not only that, is that now I actually alter some of my views in regards to how I do my marketing, how I go ahead and reach out to people. And using that education is the part that really sets us apart from everything else, is making sure to go ahead and make the right judgments by educating yourself, not just with AI, but making sure you do your research in other places too at the same time.
Yeah, that's spot on. And though I will say, if AI finds a way to get me out there in front of everybody as a chicken salesman, maybe I just change my business model. I don't know. Maybe I become a chicken middleman.
You're changing industries.
Yeah, exactly. Roll with the punches. That's my number one rule in life. Um, yeah, no, that's spot on though. To kind of bring the episode towards a close, we like to do a some fun segments. We've had like lightning rounds and things like that. We'd like to do a segment called Level Up Minute, where we're going to focus on what businesses should be doing right now to kind of level up their digital footprint. So we'll try to keep this quick. So you don't have to expand. You can just rattle off.
We're
Give us the bullet
long-winded. I
points.
got it.
Exactly. So what should businesses be doing right now to stay ahead of AI driven changes?
Make sure reviews, taking care of them. Make sure their digital footprint is correct, and making sure that actually they have somebody in there not only that they can trust, but they actually does the work for them. If that's not their if that's not their expertise, they have somebody that actually that is their passion, because that's a big part. Making sure you have the right person, their passion for actually doing the right thing and making sure to go ahead and have success in this.
Absolutely. And that ties back to that very first discussion we had. Nobody falls
Mhm.
into this industry unless they care about it, right? So finding the right
Yep.
person that's passionate, hasn't burned out, that is interested in keeping up the change, that love this stuff, they're the people that are going to be able to help guide you up the mountain as things change rapidly. It's not the people that are like, oh, I've been in the industry for 10 years and I use the same playbook I did when I was building links on Wikipedia. Very different.
Yep. Lastly, making sure they're not taking shortcuts. That right there is probably the most important piece I can say. Never take the shortcut, because the shortcut always leads to failure. You go ahead and you do the right thing, that's going to go ahead and get you. But if you do the failure pieces or the pieces of the shortcuts, it'll always backfire. Maybe not
Absolutely.
today, but tomorrow.
Yeah, and how many horror stories have we heard of people doing that and then getting a manual penalty? Like from Google, which for the readers, for the listeners here that may not know what that means, it means you get no traffic to your website because Google said you did something wrong until you fix it
Mhm.
all. And it can kill a business. It's terrible. So no shortcuts, absolutely. Um, Next question. What if a business owner could only do three things to improve the digital footprint this year, let's say limited by bandwidth or investment, what would they be?
Three things. First thing, invest something into AI. And what I mean by that, making sure you're seen. And I don't care what it is. If you go ahead and you have a department that wants to do it, you've got one person, or just to basically the focus of actually running it. Right there, that is the biggest piece you can possibly do. Two, making sure that you are not only talked about, but talked about in good circles, and making sure that actually those good circles, you're responsive and you actually have a concern for what you're doing. And thirdly, making sure that what you actually say you're actually doing itself. Because that'll counteract what you're doing with the second one that I just talked about. But making sure that there's value in that, so it's not artificial. In these talked about circles, you can actually know and you see, because people want to interact with people, they want to see that passion. So if the biggest salespeople you have is not your sales team, is not your marketing team, a lot of times it's actually the success from the customers you've actually had.
Absolutely. There's nothing better than having a promoter in the market
Mhm.
talking about how well you've done. What's one AI tool you'd recommend starting with today for anybody that might not necessarily be on the knowledge plane that you and I are? What's one tool you'd say, look, if you want to get into it and learn and start using AI yourself, this is what you should
Okay.
do?
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to say more or less kind of the basic pieces. It'd be a Chat GPT um, or a Gronk or a Gemini. One of those pieces right there. But if we want to go ahead and get down into it, um, video software. And the reason why I say this, I know it's going to be a very, very odd statement, but when you go ahead and you work in a video software and you see what the capabilities of what something can be done just with a click of a mouse or just adding a few words and saying, hey, I want to change this, and this, that right there sparks the interest. And if the interest is there, that's going to make you dive into 18 different tools.
Mhm.
Maybe it's going to be a software in regards to social media. or maybe you're going to work on something for your broadcasting in regards to the marketing and what are we doing trajectory wise. But those creating that interest piece, and I've seen that a lot in those video softwares. You go ahead and say, wow, this is something, this interests me, and I do not want to go ahead and fall behind.
That's amazing. The first time I used AI personally was an image generator to make just funny things to send to my friends, and that sparked the passion for, okay, we've got to figure this out, and like there's so much we can do with it. Now we've made just amazing portions of our like ad campaigns that we run, and we've had some really cool things that we've made with AI off of that. And we have a team that edits it and kind of upscales it and things along those lines, but we've done some really cool stuff. And that leads into, okay, what else can we do? How
Yeah.
else can we, I've done the fun stuff, but that wasn't difficult to do. Now how can I get into becoming more efficient or making my day-to-day role easier for me to keep up with the hours that we have in the day, and all the other responsibilities outside of work. How can we get to the point where AI is helping us become better? And
Yeah.
that's that journey. Most people fall into it. Most people don't start AI by going to something like AirOps and being like, let me automate an entire thing, right? They go into it with like, okay, well, let me ask some questions like, where can I find this, velour tracksuit? Or, how can I, become the best chicken farmer out there? Things along those lines, right? And then they go deeper and deeper into it. And I will say, for anybody listening that feels you know scared about their own personal ability to grasp this, it's not difficult. If I could do it, anybody can. It's something I like to say.
Well, Tristan, I'm going to tell you, I'm scared of it sometimes.
Yeah.
Can I do this? I don't know if it's possible. But then again, that's the part that interests me. And that's the
Mhm,
part that makes me go ahead and say, if I can do this, I got to do this. Just let me go ahead and connect these pieces together like this, and this.
mhm.
And then before that, we'll build a plugin or you build this or whatever. But that's the part that really drives not only the ability to go ahead and do great things in AI and be noticed in AI,
Mhm.
but actually the great things for people actually coming to the site or coming to your digital footprint or actually searching you and actually finding those pieces. That's what it wants. It wants you, the AI wants you to learn. It wants you to go ahead and grasp this, and it wants you to be able to build all these things that you haven't really even imagined yet. But once you go ahead and you start getting into these pieces, you realize that how powerful a tool we're sitting on, as we talked about, and we're in the wild, wild west a little bit still. What powerful tool we have to go ahead and really change the trajectory of not just your brand or this brand, but brands across the world, and actually how we do things across the world, and actually the opportunities across the world that actually is creating with it.
Yeah. 100%. And the first one of the biggest moments for me personally was, I've tried to develop some things in the past. I've, put together a web scraper in Python and things along those lines. I'm not a developer. I know enough to know this is not my realm. I don't think that way. I'm not wired that way. The first time I used Claude to build out kind of like web app based thing, it was amazing. It was like this almost, transcendent experience, right? Where I'm like, this is something that in the past I had tried and I was like, I don't have the dedication to learn all of this with everything else going on in life. And now I'm able to shortcut that and do something amazing with it. And that's a really interesting moment that I feel a lot of people have when they start utilizing AI more than just talking to ChatGPT. When they start getting more into it, it's that moment of like, aha, I can really do something cool with this. Um, that being said, last question. What's one thing you would stop doing immediately if you wanted long-term visibility in AI?
We talked a little bit before about AI, and as you said, AI slop. Um, if you want visibility, give something to the AI it hasn't seen before. Give it the human element, give it the human experience, give it things that it's not going to be necessarily spit out in an AI. And those things are very helpful. I'm not saying go ahead and do not use AI. You do, but you want to go ahead and you want to add in what that connection is, the what the value of that is, expertise in your field. Those are the pieces that actually get you noticed. And if you get those pieces noticed, sorry, since we had internet issues, I made sure to go ahead and have uh, my hotwire or being able to connect to it. Um, I'm sorry, what was that? But making sure that you have that human element, making sure that you have that ability to connect, those are the things that are going to separate you. And if you can get that separation, that's how you get the acknowledgement. And if you get the acknowledgement, that's when AI starts serving you. And actually, and those other pieces that we talked about that actually not only combine but compound it are the parts that actually will make AI really want to go ahead and serve what you have to others.
My bold prediction for 2026 is that AI models will start referencing their knowledge base when consuming content, and they will start really creating not a bias, but heavily weighting fresh new content that doesn't already exist in their database in some form. So whether it's like a contrarian take or it's a different way of doing something or a different way of thinking, I feel like that will have a much higher weight in the model moving forward because it is fresh. And one of the, kind of existential uh, challenges that LLMs face is consuming the same content over and over and consuming AI generated content over and over. It creates almost this like negative feedback loop where it just gets worse
Mhm.
and worse. So the way to counteract that is find things that are unique. And I think that can't come from, necessarily people just talking about the same stuff. They need to find a new way to talk about it, or they need to find a new way to frame it, or they need to, find new things to do to impact, whatever the task at hand is. And I think that, that's my bold prediction for 2026. I feel like that's the way it's going to have to go to remain strongly relevant.
Yeah. And as we talked about, and you just go ahead and bring us all the way to the very beginning. All we're trying to do, and all you should be trying to do, is bringing value to the consumer. And whatever that piece is, and how it gets there, that's how you do it. Making sure you know the persona, you know who they are, what they want, how they want to get it, and making sure you go ahead and line it up with that. And if you do that, success is just around the corner. You just have to go ahead and work at it.
I can't think of a better quote to end the episode on. So thank you very much, Anthony. It was a pleasure having you on here. I really enjoyed chatting with you today. Before we close out, I always like to give people an opportunity to kind of like plug their social, their website, whatever they try. They're looking to build up. So you want to tell us where we can find you?
Well, no surprise, you can find me on LinkedIn. um, Need an attorney or Anthony May too. Either one of those. And go ahead and like us over there. You can go ahead and you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, all the channels, Katora, Reddit, all of those aspects. You can also just visit us over at needanattorney.net. And if you want to, email help@needanattorney.net. And if you have legal issues, we'll go ahead and send you the right direction. And if you just have more questions in regards to AI or more questions in regards to what the trajectory of how this looks, what we're looking like for the future, and how do we get there. And I don't have all the answers by any means. And Tristan, I will look to you on a lot of these pieces, but that's really the road I want to go on down. I want to go ahead and not only have I built my network over 20 years, I want to continue to work it. I want to continue to grow it because I love this space. And I think that as all of us together work together, we can all accomplish something that is actually great and actually be at the forefront of something actually incredible.
It's fantastic. I need you around to help write my quotes moving forward.
That was $5, just so you know.
Yeah, don't worry. Christina will send you a gift card. Uh,
Yeah.
so if you like this episode, everybody, I always uh, I always hate to do this portion, but please make sure you follow, leave a review, and always comment what topics you'd like us to cover next. We're always interested in, you know, uh, figuring out what our audience wants to hear, and that helps us kind of source guests and kind of make sure that we're staying relevant for everybody. So thank you everybody listening for your time today. Thank you so much, Anthony May. I really appreciate it. Again, please make sure to check out Need an Attorney if you ever need one, and hopefully you don't. I hope I never do, knock on wood. And I will see you all next time.